Dimitri Downing back here with
Destiny Blanco
at Emerald, and enjoying a wonderful day of meeting such high caliber individuals. We just interviewed Wes Burke, and we're trying to figure. He's about to give birth to something, and we don't know what it is. It's probably not a child.
Another Emerald baby.
In today's world, maybe it could be a child, but the man is on fire, and so that was very exciting. But now we've got another cool individual who actually is a friend of Wes, Dr. Markus Roggen.
Thank you very much for having me.
Did I?
Yes,
your
close
voice.
enough. So
you had me at hello with your voice.
Thank you. So I'm German, so you roll all the R's. So it would be Markus Roggen, but I've been now in the US for so long, or North America for so long, that anything in that vicinity is good enough.
Dr. Markus Roggen. How long have you been in the United States?
I came here for my postdoc December 2012, and I've been in North America since. I specify North America because I moved to Canada end of 2018.
Where'd you do
about 4 years ago?
Where'd you do your doctorate?
I did my Ph.D. in chemistry at ETHZ Zürich in Switzerland.
In Switzerland. Wow, I'm impressed already, and I just met you. What year were you born? May I ask that? That's because I'm
83.
83. So you're 7 years old when the wall came down.
Yes, and I can remember it.
You got to tell me your wall story. I'm a big freedom guy. The cannabis spirit, the cannabis industry is all about freedom. Okay. So you got to talk about the wall.
Okay, so I was 7. I was 7. I was 7 by the time it. It came down in 98.
1989 or 90?
89 when it fell, and then in 90 was the reunification. So I was like 6.
Uh-huh.
But I remember I was sitting on the floor in front of the television watching the news with my family, and I was like, that's important. Remember that.
Yeah.
But that's like this little blip that I can remember. But obviously I was only 6 at the time. So.
Were you east or west?
I'm from as far west as possible. I'm from Düsseldorf. That's near the Dutch border.
Düsseldorf. Okay. I've been through Düsseldorf a long, long time ago. Well, we were in Berlin last June, and we'll be back there again in this June as well with this podcast. So
ICBC?
ICBC, yeah.
ICBC.
Were you at the last ICBC?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's a good show. There's a lot of interesting professionals there.
I hear good things. I have not yet managed to be accepted there as a speaker, and then making the track over is a bit of an effort. I now live in Vancouver, Canada.
Vancouver's nice.
So it's far.
So tell us about your journey into the cannabis space. You said your postdoc was 2012, and how did you get involved in cannabis?
Yeah, so I'm an organic chemist by training. My Ph.D. was in organic chemistry, postdoc in physical organic chemistry. And it was in the US that I the first time learned about that there's an alternative to either be a professor or work for a pharma company. There's a third option, and that was science startups. And San Diego is where I was here for my postdoc, is this place for biotech startups. And then serendipitously, cannabis was just recreationally legalized in Colorado and Washington.
Okay, the 2013-14?
Yeah. And it came about that a California company was looking for a chemist to build a testing laboratory. And I was like, startup, cannabis, sure, let's see.
Yeah.
And so that's how I fell into it.
What's wrong? You okay?
And I randomly fell into it. I continued in building this testing lab for a while, and then I was recruited over to production. And I was working for a cannabis producer here in San Diego.
So they had you testing the cannabis, not producing products?
No, initially it was just testing.
Just testing?
Yeah.
What were you testing it for?
So cannabinoids, pesticides, terpenes. So the normal compliance safety testing that you now do.
And so you were working for a testing company, not a production company. It was a testing company.
Yes. So initially that was a testing company, and then I changed jobs 2 years later for a production company.
Okay.
And then I was in production. So now I had to make it.
Right. What year did you start production?
I started production mid of 2016.
And was it for like a manufacturer, a cultivator, a brand that we'd recognize, or?
The company's called Outco. They are in the east side of San Diego, and they are vertically integrated and had a micro business license.
Okay.
They did their own cultivation, they did extraction, production, they had a store, and they sold to Southern California stores as well.
So they were asking you to figure out the extraction and manufacturing.
They basically like, okay, we just set up cultivation, we now have all this cannabis, make vapes.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So this let's figure out is actually quite an important aspect of my move through the cannabis world.
Maybe that should be the title of your book.
Figure it out. It's a good
Write
book.
that down.
I have a few other titles that must not be shared on air. The question for me was, okay, cannabis is a plant, there are oils in there, how do we get them out? What's the solubility of cannabinoids in the solvent you choose? What's the best conditions? And it was to my surprise that at the time there was very little information or literature of how to extract. What solubilities are, what stability of compounds were. And so I enjoyed the aspect of actually figuring out the fundamentals of production way more than production. So I liked figuring out how to make it, but then I didn't enjoy so much continue making it the same way every day, which is an important aspect of cannabis production or general production, right? You want consistency. Yeah. But that is a skill that I don't enjoy as much. And I just like, okay, we now made oil. How do we make better oil? Or how do we now store it better? Or what's a better vape formulation and so on? So I was working for this production company and I'd done the initial research to set it up. And now we had a nice production and everything was going well. And I was like, I'm bored. How can I continue doing more research? And how can I help the cannabis industry? Not just my producer, but how do I help more people or more companies with this? And so I had to set up a research laboratory. And you can't do that in the US because it's federally illegal and it's really difficult to work with the universities on this. So I moved to Canada where it was federally legalized in mid of 2018 for recreational use. And by January 2019, I set up shop in Vancouver next to the University of British Columbia. We had a licensed research laboratory to do cannabis research or chemistry focused. So now we can focus at questions. Okay, you have an extractor, you make your oil, but how do you squeeze more oil out of the plant, or how do you reduce the time or cost to make this so that you can be more efficient in your production? So then the question was, how do we solve it? And there are different approaches, and I don't really care about the exact approach. So I'm not like, oh, I have this toy, I help you now. It's more like, what's your problem? How do we solve it on the chemistry side? If it's a biological question, how to grow better, or if it's a marketing question, how to color the package better, I can't really help. But if it's a question that is somewhat related to chemistry, I can help.
Right.
So we do extraction, then we developed analytical methods to either find more compounds in the plant or to do the analytics cheaper and on-site. So one step is decarboxylation. You want to know when is that decarboxylation step done. I developed an instrument that's like that small. It cost a few $1,000s. You put it next to your reactor, and in 30 seconds you get an answer, instead of taking a sample, shipping it off, waiting a week and getting an answer.
Who funds this research?
The client that wants the solution.
Okay.
So if I can convince a cannabis producer that we can save costs in their production, then the fee they pay me is considerably lower than the waste they have every week with the old method. It should be a win-win, but it often is a difficult sell as the executive teams don't understand that research, science, chemistry can actually sell. And I find reluctant extraction artists or head of extractions is like, I know it all, like, why do I need any help? But I find the current situation or discussion that cannabis is a CPG product not helpful, because in a CPG product, you know how to make it, and your cost of production are tiny compared to your sales price. But in cannabis, to be honest, we don't yet know how to make it, and the sales price is only a little bit higher than your cost of production. So it's not yet a CPG product. It is still a research thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, what is your opinion on Delta 8?
Pandora's box.
See?
So, yes, you can make the argument that Delta 8 has been found in the plant. I'm not sure that is actually what the plant made or just an artifact of us analyzing the material. But while Delta 8 itself has an understood and controlled safety profile, the way it is made by the cannabis industry players is not safe. We earlier today had a presentation by a scientist from the Waters Corporation that looked at Delta 8 products, and they not only found Delta 8, but they found 8 other compounds that they have no idea what it is.
Oh no.
So if the general public has chemophobia, being scared of chemical compounds, and the cannabis industry is all about, we are natural, we are a healing plant, we are great and safe.
Right.
Then using battery acid on CBD isolate and then selling that as at a gas station is not the solution.
Yeah.
I don't think that is, you can make the argument it's natural or it is plant derived. And it definitely would fall under the term of chemophobia, because there's so much in there that has chemical names that would scare everyone.
That's interesting. So Delic Labs is your location up in British Columbia since 2019.
Yep.
Can you work with companies from the United States and other countries just through like an IP process?
Yes. So,
But not. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're correct.
Explain to me how that works.
So we are in Canada because there I can handle the material. So side note, we're called Delic Labs from psychedelics because my laboratory was acquired in 2021 by Delic Corp. It's a public company for psychedelics, ketamine clinics, and now through the acquisition of us, Cannabis Research. And so we hold research licenses for cannabis, but also psychedelic compounds. So LSD, MDMA, DMT,
right,
psilocybin, psilocin. So I have 2 safes, one safe full of cannabis, one safe full of mushrooms, and we can do all the fun research.
I love that. I'm a huge mushroom enthusiast.
Yeah. And so that's a completely different or another topic. There's lots of fun research to do as well.
Yeah.
But the industry is considerably smaller. So staying in cannabis, in Canada, cannabis is legal. And if other countries also have a legal setup for cannabis, then one can get the import and export licenses from the countries to ship material back and forth.
Okay.
But that's still time-consuming, complicated.
Right.
And that excludes the US because it's federally illegal, so it's not getting across the border one way or the other. But it doesn't have to, because chemistry behaves universally the same.
Right.
We can do the chemistry in our lab and just send the information. So most of the deliverables we produce are just emails and PDFs. They are not, we don't, as we are a research lab, we don't produce anything per se. I don't have to ship oil to anyone. Actually, all our oil goes into bleach and is destroyed at the end of the day.
Oh, that's sad.
That is our SOP method of destruction.
Right.
I know that some of my students that applied for the job were thinking we just smoke it all at the end of the day to get rid of it, but That didn't happen, unfortunately.
Well, that you haven't had a student like Destiny yet.
I was like, I'll go to your office. I'll solve that problem for you.
Sure, but we actually have a robot that smokes the joints for us.
Really? And so, but it just tests. It's a testing thing, right?
Yeah.
AI,
So
AI smoker.
so we have a smoke cycle simulator. It's the machine called. It comes from the tobacco industry. So there's so much testing of what goes into a cannabis product, but no one really looks at what comes out.
Right.
So if you make a vape card or you make a joint, you know what's in the flower or in the oil, but you don't actually know what is inhaled. So we wanted to know how much THC do you inhale when you pull at a vape card or a joint?
Yeah. How much?
Have a guess. So you have a vape card that is 90% THC,
Okay.
or you have a joint, let's say 20% THC. Which product gives you more THC per puff?
I'd say the joint,
Why?
because it's the pure plant. It's the plant. It's the flower that you're ingesting. When you are smoking, a vape, you're ingesting other stuff that is added. I don't know the exact stuff, but some companies got in trouble for putting vitamin E.
Yeah, vitamin E acetate. Yeah, we had a lecture about this just now.
So
No,
I'm
it's
sure that
actually the
affects
same.
it.
It's actually, funnily enough, it's about the same. You inhale about 1 milligram of THC per puff.
Milligram.
But it becomes a bit more complicated from there. So in a vape cartridge, because it's a homogeneous oil, so it's oil, it's all the same, every puff is about the same until the hardware dies off at the end. So you get like 400 puffs out of a vape card, so like at the end, the last 50 puffs, the hardware is slowly dying.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on which hardware type you have and which oil. So it's, again, a little bit more complicated. But in general, you're like about the same, 1 milligram every puff. For a joint, you start off with 0.5 milligram. And then by the end of the joint, so the roach, the last little bit, you get like 1.5 milligrams per puff. So all the fun is actually at the end of the joint. And
Because all of the resin has been going throughout the joint.
right, because the THC is pulled into the aerosols or little oil droplets, and then they deposit at the flower again later on.
That's actually one of the things that I base if my joint is good or not. If I don't have that little resin ring, I'm like, questionable.
Yeah, it wasn't enough oil in cannabis in there, or cannabinoids in there. That's right.
Cannabinoids.
And so we have a machine that can now test this, and I don't have to believe in things anymore or like imagine. I can actually measure stuff, and now we can go and make it better. People complain that a vape cartridge is not as good as a joint, but why? We can look at the profile of what is inhaled, and what else is a joint delivering to you except THC? Is there other compounds that are of interest? And can we then make sure they make it into a vape card?
See, what you just said kind of sparked something in my head was when you hit a vape, you hit the vape and, yes, you feel it 7 seconds later, right? And it's about a 15-minute high. But then if you hit a joint, you find yourself kind of high for the rest of the, 4 hours or something.
Yeah, so then the question is, what other compound was in there that you inhaled that was missing in the vape cartridge? Was it removed in the extraction process? Or it was never extracted in the first place? Or was the processing that killed it? So by us understanding what a vape does, what a joint does, how they behave, we can maybe make a better vape. But we can also make a better joint. So
this guy's dangerous.
I have a toy. I do use it, right? So we have a smoking machine. We have joints. So now the question was, does the particle size of the cannabis make a difference? Because some people say, oh, I like my hand ground, or like everyone does slightly different how they make the joint. So we wanted to know, we can quantify this now. So we went and we cut up cannabis flower in different sizes. So 1 millimeter and 5 millimeters. So like small and large particles.
Right.
And then we filled the joints, same flower, just different particle size. And when you have the small particle size joint, 1
For
millimeter.
our listeners, Chicago style versus grounded up.
Right. You actually inhale double the amount of THC per puff from a small particle than if you would smoke a large particle.
Really?
At the beginning.
Uh-huh.
So the first few puffs, you get way more THC out of a small particle, one than a large particle. Later on, it all evens out and you get about the same per puff. But a small particle joint burns quicker than a large particle joint.
That's right.
So if you want a dog walker and you have like 5 minutes to get through a joint, small particles, right? Burns quicker, you get all the THC very quickly. But if you want something for the evening or to share with friends, a slow burner, large particles.
But you're not getting as high.
And you get more puffs out of it, so you can share it better. So, but you wouldn't have known if you didn't measure it. So like, these are the research questions that I enjoy. Like, it's this border between like funky science, but also better quality.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I keep thinking to myself, one day, like, Nabisco is going to hire you and just say, sir, we want you to take whatever's out there that you've probably helped in some capacity develop already and take it one step further.
Yeah. And so I would say
It's that restless spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. I might get bored quickly, so I have to like do something else.
No, that's okay. It's a problem that men have. We have it.
Thanks for admitting that.
No, we just do that.
Oh, I know a lot of very driven female researchers.
Well, I wouldn't call it driven. I mean, the negative part of it is what I'm. Don't worry about me.
So basically, he wants to say he has no self-control.
Yeah. don't mind me. Anyways, back to what you were saying, because I mean, this is, I think to myself, if I had a cannabis company, and I'm manufacturing products, I'm trying to figure out if I can bring this guy on board. But you must be working with a number of different companies, and you just kind of.
So we work with a host of companies from different countries. Like I have clients in Europe, Australia, South Africa, South America, North America, so US and Canada. And just to be fair, when I do research project, I try to keep one research project to one company. I don't want to sell the same work to multiple people. It would be really good for me economically, but I don't think it's fair. Like,
right.
If someone wants something specifically developed for them, then I will develop it for them, and that's then their IP. Because if they pay me for the work, it's their product. It's their knowledge. It's not mine to give away again. But to just follow up on this, in cannabis, 50% of the sales are flower or joints.
Right.
Or pre-rolls. The other 50% are vapes, drinks, edibles, and all that together.
Nips, yeah.
And pre-rolls grow double the rate than the cannabis sales itself. So if cannabis sales grow 20% year over year, pre-roll sales grow by 40% year over year. And in that, the fastest growing segment are infused pre-rolls. So people want to smoke flower. They want to smoke it easy in a pre-roll and don't do it themselves. And they definitely want a better pre-roll because they're buying infused. If an infused pre-roll is actually better is another question. But they want something more than just the standard boring stuff. So if that is where the money is, why don't we put effort into making this? And if my work already showed that different particle sizes have different effect on the joint, then a weed whacker as your mill won't cut it. Well, actually it does cut, but it doesn't cut it right. So put some effort into your material. It's
definitely.
not just weed. You're making a good product, so put effort in it.
And that's what I agree with you. Pre-rolls are huge part of the the industry, and what upsets me now is these dispensaries result to just putting their trim in the pre-rolls.
Yeah,
so
I work for a vertically integrated company.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
The quality is definitely what matters the most. But I now that you say the smaller the product is, now I know why the trim is just so grounded up, so small.
And often it's drier, so that burns quicker as well. So the water content has also an effect on your joint. There are so many different aspects to it. And in the end, it doesn't really matter what cool things you did to it. The consumer needs to enjoy it, and for a producer, it needs to be economically doable, right? It needs to be cheap to produce and have a high value product in the end. And you can't just think, oh, it's cannabis, it will sell itself. Because if we look at a market that grows 20% year over year, but 95% of California companies are not making money, like, how does everyone fail in a growing industry? Like, how does that happen?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of other factors as well, but we're trying to keep these for about 20, 25 minutes. And you're an absolutely fascinating interview. And I didn't even notice we got up to 25. Can you do the same level of analysis and the same science with gummies? Are you doing that as well?
I could. I haven't yet done it. So obviously gummies don't smoke well on the machine.
Yeah.
Hey, AI, eat this.
Because I'm just trying to think. I have a couple of friends' companies that I think could use your help in refining their product and
so
their
on the
gummies.
Gummy side would then be the question, like, how do they behave in ingestion, right? Like, how do they behave in the digestive tract? Like, how are they digested? How are they taken up by the body? Can we do tricks to ensure that the delivery of cannabinoids to the body goes seamlessly, quickly, that we don't have this massive delay in onset? Can we speed that up? And that's the advantage of being at a university. I can find any expert we need for this and collaborate with them. So I've talked with a professor in the pharmacy department about transdermal delivery of cannabinoids and how we would do this, and what pig skin or human skin we would need, and what a simulated fluid would use on, like, testing how that goes through the skin.
Exactly, and something like that too is that matter with because it's a body, so the body weight, the body fat of the individual. Same with edibles.
Right. So as you said, body fat. So fat. Cannabinoids have a pretty bad uptake in the system. So if you ingest cannabinoids like CBD, you maybe take in, like, if you take a CBD tincture, you maybe take up 20% of the CBD you ingested. But if you eat fatty food with it, you increase the uptake. And if you like diet while you take it, you take up less CBD. So that comes then, can you then formulate that into your product to already bring that, like, fat that helps with the delivery? Or can you use other things like nanotechnology, so nano emulsions, so make little droplets of CBD that go quicker through the intestines wall?
I wonder if somebody did this kind of scientific research around my Diet Coke. That's why I like it so much. They made it perfect.
So in the food industry, these highly processed foods in North America, they have really fine-tuned them. That's like the right amount of every ingredient. Like, they want to give you sweetness, so sugar, but putting more sugar in doesn't make it, at some point, it doesn't make it more sweet.
Right.
But your ingredient costs go up. So if you find the right level that you just give enough sweetness for the enjoyment, but you save on your ingredients, you save money in production.
Yeah.
But you still get the full sales value.
Wow. This is
other industries think about their boring products really, really hard.
Yeah.
And our industry is not thinking about their interesting products.
Well, they will once you get your hands on all of them, and I admire that. I respect that, and I would anybody who's watching this who's connected to a brand, or a product that's manufactured should be reaching out to you and your organization and saying, hey, what can you do potentially to help us evolve this and take it to the next level, which is pretty cool. But we do need to wrap it up, and it's been an absolute honor. Will we see you again soon in Berlin in the June? ICBC?
So I will be here presenting tomorrow about the exciting topic of pool testing for heavy metal analysis. Yeah. So how can testing labs save on their testing and still offer good quality testing for a cheaper price and a faster turnaround to the producer, so that they can test more and have less failure?
That's a huge deal in Arizona, the turnaround.
Yeah. And I will also talk about synthesis of cannabinoids. So how do we make cannabinoids from scratch synthetically and don't need the plant? Because some jurisdictions don't like the plant.
Right.
So and then I will be in Florida at CanMed. And otherwise, I haven't yet planned my travel schedule.
Right.
If people ask me nicely, I'm happy to come. And like, we have so many different research topics. I don't even talk about the same thing more than twice. Normally, I only lecture on it once, and then I go on to the next research project.
Well, we're definitely going to stay in touch because you are a wealth of knowledge. And I know a lot of people, and people are always looking for something. And I feel as though I found another expert that I can refer people to. So it was really great meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Mad respect for my Germans ever since you guys killed it in philosophy and the Winter Olympics. Oh, just kidding.
Thank you very much for pointing this out.
Yes.
I lived in England for a bit. They pointed other defeats out.
Yes.
So thank you.
No, I mean, I used to, I can be the same way, but you have to respect the German culture, and the German people are just filled with just such a high level of excellence. It's incredible.
We had our low points, but I think we learned from mistakes.
Got a little cocky.
Tried to improve.
Got a little cocky a couple times in the last century, but that happens. That happens. It's an incredible people.
Danke.
Incredible work ethic,
Dankeschön.
incredible mindset.
Dankeschön.
Not that I want to generalize about all German people, because I'm sure there's a bunch of people in Germany that are not.
You know what I just learned about Germany is you guys aren't allowed to brand cannabis. So what they do is they use a logo, a bunny holding like that would be the strain.
Cannabis is not yet legalized recreational. They are thinking about it, how they set up the regulations, and one of that would be very similar to tobacco products. You can't brand them, you can't advertise them. So,
That's interesting.
But it's not yet finalized. But yeah, it's probably not the way you advertise for normal food products.
Mm-hmm.
More like tobacco.
It's a little nonchalant over there. That's interesting.
We definitely look forward to meeting you again and having you on a future episode of Meet Unshackled. You're an absolutely amazing individual with a tremendous future in the cannabis space, and I think everyone would be smart to reach out to you and work with Delic Labs, figure out if there's some sort of partnership to be had. So thank you for joining us on
Thank you very much.
Meet Unshackled.
Thank you so much. And that was another episode of Meet Unshackled.